marriage contract can address a variety of issues, the most important of which is the division of property. The division of property is governed by general operation of law in Ontario under the statutory and common law frameworks currently in place. At the end of the relationship, when the parties separate, the courts will look at the value, the net family property of each party. The party that has a higher net family property will have to equalize it by transferring to their partner 1/2 of the value of the difference between them. Now, there are certain limitations to this rule. The calculations are complex and you should consult your solicitor if you have any doubts. Nevertheless, marriage contract can provide that certain pieces of property, such as houses, land, stocks, pensions, and so forth, are excluded from this calculation of net family property. And by doing that, they are preserved for the party to whom they have belonged since the inception of the marriage. Another major issue that the parties will discuss in the marriage contract is spousal support. Spousal support is a touchy subject for many people. And while marriage contract can provide for a waiver or modification of spousal support rights under the current family law regime, it is also subject to a court's discretion in the future. If the party giving up spousal support decides to challenge it in court at a later date, even when the contract is unimpeachably made and meets all the formal and statutory requirements, it is possible for a judge to reopen or override certain provisions about spousal support under certain circumstances. To know exactly what these circumstances are and how they would apply to your case, you have to discuss it with your lawyer. Now, there are things that marriage contracts cannot deal with. The most important thing is the custody of the children. While the marriage contract can outline certain agreements or intentions about the upbringing or educational or religious guidance for the child, the courts in Ontario and in Canada retain the jurisdiction to decide what is in the best interest of the child. That is one of the main reasons why it is impossible to predict the future and include provisions outlining who will get sole or joint custody of the children upon the breakdown of a relationship. Another exception to the ability of marriage contracts to opt out of a general family law regime is the exclusive possession of the matrimonial home. The Family Law Act deals with the matrimonial homes and the rights associated with this very unique piece of property. Under this particular part of the Family Law Act, a party cannot contract out of the possession of the matrimonial home. Also, neither party can encumber or sell the matrimonial home without the approval of the other. Marriage contract reflects these exceptions. Financial disclosure from both parties to a marriage contract is crucial to its enforceability. Without full and frank disclosure of one's assets and liabilities, the courts are more likely than not to reopen a marriage contract. So if one of you has very high net worth, while it goes against one's intuition, perhaps, it is extraordinarily important to disclose all those assets to your partner if you wish the negotiated terms of the marriage contract to remain enforceable in the future. If the courts find out that one of the parties withheld a material piece of financial information, they may set either specific terms or the whole contract aside. Now, it is important to note that because of the conflicts of laws issues, certain types of properties held outside or the province of Ontario or Canada in other jurisdictions may not be covered by Ontario marriage contracts. It is not unheard of for Ontario lawyers to include the provisions in marriage contracts that deal with the property outside of the province. It is, however, very questionable if those terms can be enforced, considering that the jurisdiction of the Ontario courts only goes as far as the actual borders of Ontario, and in some cases Canada. If you have significant real estate presence in a foreign jurisdiction, you may want to talk to your lawyer and consider whether having a marriage contract in another jurisdiction may also be a wise move. Lastly, one formal important matter to discuss is the timing of the negotiation and the signing of the marriage contract. If the marriage contract is signed a couple of days or very shortly prior to the marriage, it may not even be worth the paper that it's written on.